Hello and welcome everyone to this webinar on should you take your home loan from LIC Housing Finance. My name is Harsh Runka and I am the founder and CEO of apnapaisa.com. We're going to use the next 15 or 20 minutes to talk about the housing finance products that are available from LIC Housing Finance, which is among the top 3 or 4 home loan providers in India today. First, before we start, some disclaimers. Apna Paisa is not connected to LIC Housing Finance in any manner. The views presented in this webinar are our independent views. Apna Paisa does not act as a loan agent or a loan broker. We would advise you strongly to consult your personal finance advisor before you take any decision on financial matters. And LIC Housing Finance may be an advertiser on Apna Paisa from time to time. Before we start, I thought we'll do a quick poll on the views of the group on home loan interest rates. Let me just put that poll on your screens. Okay, I'm seeking views on what are your views on home loan interest rates over the next 2-3 years. Do you think rates are going to go up? Currently, they are in the region of 10 to 10.5% on floating. Do you expect them to go up and remain high? Do you expect them to go up a little bit, but within 2-3 years they will come down? Or do you expect that rates 2 years down the line they're going to come down? Or really you don't know? So this poll is going to appear on your screens right now, and I want you to answer that in the next 45 seconds. I think you are seeing the I request you all to quickly, all of you, to take the vote. I'm still awaiting some votes. We have so far. If you don't have a view, please put the don't say, don't know, can't say button. That is good enough. Just a couple of more votes and then we are going to close it. Okay. So here I think is the answer. We have 17% people who think rates will go up. 33% feel that the rates may go up a bit but will be lower in 2-3 years time. 17% feel that it will be in the next, the rates will be lower now from here on. And I think a lot of people just don't know. So a pretty divided house. You can see the results of the poll on your screens right now. So very clearly, I think there's a pretty divided house in terms of where interest rates are going. And just one more poll. What kind of a home loan are you looking for? And the options are, I like safety of fixed rates, though they are expensive. I'm okay with floating rates as they are cheaper to start with. Or third, I don't know, can't say. You will get the poll on your screens right now. It is open for voting. Please vote. I'm still expecting a couple of votes. Okay. Okay. So I think I'm going to close the vote now, and I think the vote very clearly, at least on this webinar, is that people prefer floating rates as they are cheaper to start with. Even though people have a difference of opinion on which way rates are going to move, they seem to be perfectly okay with floating rate loans as they are cheaper to start with. Okay, so I think essentially now let's just move on to the subject of the webinar. Should you take a home loan from LIC Housing Finance? What are the advantages of taking a home loan from LIC Housing Finance? Okay, just one more thing I want to announce. At any point of time, if you have a question, you can raise a hand. You have the ability to raise a hand. Please look at the dashboard on the right top side of your screens, and I will get to know that you have asked a question, and I will then give you an opportunity. You can also type the question, or you can raise your hand and I will unmute your mic and you can ask the question. So to answer that question about whether you should take your loan from LIC Housing Finance, a quick comparison with other leading players would be in order. Now this data is as of yesterday. As per information available with us, LIC Housing Finance does not offer pure floating rate loans, and therefore if you just look at pure floating rate loans, State Bank of India by far of course is the cheapest at 10.10. This is for 30 lakhs for 20 years. Now it will be different for different values and it will be different for different years. We've just picked up a most common value, 30 lakhs for 20 years. For that value of loan and for 20 years, the cheapest rate is SBI at 10.10 among the major players. We are talking of the major players. ICICI Bank at 10.4 and HDFC Bank at 10.4 to 10.9. They have a variable band is there, and then you have IDBI Bank which is at 10.25. Remember, these are floating rate loans which, as we have are cheaper always to start with. Before we get on to the offers of LIC Housing Finance, a quick primer on dual rates, because that's what LIC Housing Finance offers. So what are dual home loan rates? Dual home loan rates are fixed rates for a few years and floating rates. So you can have fixed rates for 2 years or 3 years or 5 years or 10 years. If we take the same 30 lakh loan for 20 years example, you could have fixed rate for the first 2 years, fixed rate for the first 3 years, first 5 years, first 10 years, and then floating rate. Now, why and when do you take dual rates? Why do they make sense? Well, if you expect rates, and we had about I think 17% people who expected rates to go up in the near future, but expect them to drop after 2-3 years. For them, the dual rate option probably is the best, because then they can lock their rates in for the first 2-3 years and then take the benefit of the drop after 2-3 years. The other advantage which is often said is that when the rate is fixed, at that time there is a certainty of EMI during the fixed rate period. Now that is true, but in practical terms what really happens is that unless the rates rise very rapidly, even in floating rate loans, the EMIs are normally the same, the bank just increases the tenure. Normally that is what happens. Of course, if the rate rise is much higher, then your floating rate lender may have no choice but to increase your EMI. There are certain disadvantages of dual rate loans as well. Interest rates are already high. That can be a view that is clearly my view, that interest rates are already high. They may go up a little bit more. I don't think anybody can say, nobody can predict interest rates, as is clearly evident even from the completely divergent view we have had on the poll for the webinar here. But my own personal view is that interest rates are already very high. They may go up a bit more, say 0.25 and 0.5%, but they're unlikely to go up much higher than that in the next 2 or 3 years. And if they don't, then the difference between the floating rate and the fixed, the dual rate is already much more than the increase that I expect in interest rates. The second disadvantage of dual rate loans is that when it is in the fixed rate period, if you want to shift your loan to another lender, there are very high prepayment charges. They can be 2.25%, 3.36%, etc. The third disadvantage of dual rate loans is that the floating rate that is quoted for the period post the fixed rate period, now that may be much higher than what the market will have at that time. Now, so there is a bit of doubt about whether you will actually get a good deal when the dual rate loan turns into a floating rate loan after 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, or 10 years, as the case may be. Fixed rate loans, now that's pretty simple. As the name suggests, the rates remain fixed for the entire tenure of the loan. Advantages, of course, absolute certainty of EMIs and the tenure. There are disadvantages. First, they start at higher rate and therefore at a higher EMI, and because of the higher rate and higher EMI, you get a lower eligibility of loan. Then, unfortunately, in India, all fixed rate loans come with a money market clause that can cause fixed rates to become unfixed. So the whole advantage of the fixed rates could vanish because the clause is extremely vaguely worded in terms of if this happens or internal policies change, etc. It's a very, very vague clause that gives sweeping powers to the lender to change the within inverted commas fixed rate. Now that clause has never been invoked so far, but that does not mean that it won't be invoked in the future. The other disadvantage, as we already noticed in dual rate, which is there even here, is that prepayment charges are applicable if you shift your loan to another lender. There may not be any prepayment charge, especially with LIC Housing Finance. If you just prepay the loan It's only when you shift the loan to another lender that there are prepayment charges. So let's look at what LIC Housing Finance has in relation to its competitors. If you look at 2-year fixed, there are two major players. You have LIC Housing Finance and ICICI Bank. Now LIC Housing Finance, for that same 30 lakh loan for 20 years, the first 2 years the rate is 10.60%. For the balance 18 years, based on today's PLR that they have, the rate is going to be 11.90% if the PLR remains the same after 2 years, and the average, weighted average rate is therefore 11.55%. As far as ICICI is concerned, they're giving you 10.4. The variable rate post the first 2 years in the next 18 years, based on their current base rate, will remain at 10.4, and therefore the weighted average is also 10.4. We're going to similarly look at 3-year fixed, 3 plus 17, where ICICI has 10.75 fixed for the first 3 years, variable at 10.40, and therefore weighted average at 10.53. HDFC Bank has 11.5% fixed. The variable portion will range between 10.40 to 10.90, and therefore the weighted average, depending on whether, if it is 10.4, the weighted average will be 10.81. If it is 10.9, the weighted average will be 11.13. And IDBI 3-year LIC is not in the market. IDBI is 11% throughout. Similarly, for 5-year fixed, again LIC is not in the market. ICICI gives an average weighted average of 10.73. HDFC Bank gives a 10.81 to 11.13, and IDBI Bank gives it at 11%. Coming to 10-year fixed, you have LIC Housing Finance that offers a 10-year fixed product. It is 11.5% fixed for the first 10 years. There is an interesting option that they have, which is not covered here, that you can turn this into a 5 plus 5 product, which means that at the end of 5 years you can turn it into a regular variable rate product. But this means 10 years, 11.5, After 10 years, it will be 11.9, and therefore weighted average is 11.56 as compared to a weighted average in HDFC Bank of 11.33 to 11.41, and as compared to a weighted average of 11% in IDBI Bank. If you look at a 20-year, if the entire 20-year you want it fixed, it is at 12.5% in LIC Housing Finance. It is 11.75 and 75 in ICICI and Axis Bank. All fixed rates are subject to money market clause, both in dual rate contracts as well as in the pure what LIC Housing Finance calls the sure fixed product. So the $1,000,000 question, should you consider LIC Housing Finance? And I see that there are some questions. No, there are no questions. Please feel free to ask me questions. So should you consider LIC Housing Finance? Well, there are several advantages that LIC Housing Finance has. One, it's a specialized home finance company. It does only home finance, and that has a large number of approved projects. Home loan, unlike other loans, is very linked to the property that you buy, and a specialization in property really helps in the disbursement. This is a place where LIC, because LIC Housing Finance is a specialized home finance company, and it has tied up and is providing finance for a large number of approved projects. It definitely has much better understanding on property matters as compared to banks that do home loans as one of its activities. It has a large number of branches, and more importantly, it has a large number of agents that ensure that you get doorstep delivery. The 2-year fixed dual rate product has also got a lower rate for female borrowers, 0.25% during the fixed rate period as well as during the floating rate period. The disadvantages: no floating rate interest home loan is available, and we saw in this webinar that most people preferred a floating rate loan. Now that's not available. Even their dual rate and fixed rate loans, the rates are higher than those available from competitors. Let's move on to how you can approach LIC Housing Finance. First, of course, this is an Apna Paisa webinar, so you can apply on Apna Paisa, but then we cannot guarantee that you. So at Apna Paisa, we create competition for you, and it is possible that one of the people who uses the Apna Paisa platform might be an LIC Housing Finance agent and therefore might offer you LIC Housing Finance options. The second, the other option is to talk to your LIC agent. He may be an LIC Housing Finance agent as well. A third option is, of course, you can apply online to www.lichfl.com, and once you fill the form, maybe some of their branches will call you up. You can, of course, walk into an LIC Housing Finance branch, the list of which is also available on the same website. So, to conclude, really, I think home loans from LIC Housing Finance are clearly convenient. They're not cheap. They definitely can be your choice if you are interested in fixed rate or dual rate loans. That is the kind of product that LIC Housing Finance specializes in. I am now open to questions. I invite you to ask questions. You can raise your hand as well, and I will unmute you. Yes, Mr. Anand Dhonde has a question. Mr. Anand, you have been unmuted. Please ask your question.
Yeah, I just want to know about LIC Housing Finance. You said it is a high interest option, but is it the nationalized banks are offering cheaper ones, or they are also, I mean, as private banks?
So I think if you want to see a full comparison, Anand, you should log on to apnapaisa.com, go to the home loan section, and for the loan amount that you are seeking, you will be able to compare across some 70-80 providers.
Okay.
Now clearly, SBI clearly is cheaper in terms of a floating rate loan than most other providers. So clearly that is something that we showed here as well when we showed the comparison, and when you see a more detailed comparison on the Apna Paisa site, that is what you will see. But if you are looking for a dual rate loan or a fixed rate loan, well, SBI is not in that. So I mean, it's really your choice, which is the product that you are more interested in.
Kindly. Okay, I will also request one more thing,
Yes.
one more personal request is that I am looking for a loan of housing loan for a small period, about say 5 to 6 years span only.
Right.
For that, which one is preferable?
So it does not matter. I mean, see, the main thing in 5 or 6 years, Mr. Dhonde, is the fact that you should be eligible for it, because in when the tenure is lower, the eligibility will also reduce, because the percentage, the EMI is higher. When your tenure is lower, you need to repay the loan quicker. Your EMIs are higher. When your EMIs are higher, your eligibility will be lower. Assuming that you are eligible for a 5 or 6 year loan, a 5-year loan definitely every bank is offering, and you are interested in. So what are you interested in? Are you interested in a floating rate loan, or are you interested in a fixed rate loan?
My interest is that what should I opt for? A fixed rate loan for such a small tenure, or floating rate? If the floating rate is not going to vary in a foreseeable 5 to 6 periods time, the likelihood. If likelihood is not going to be too great, then why not take a floating rate loan for such a small period? Because floating rate loan, I hope, sir, that will be making a difference if the tenure is long. But since here the tenure is going to be small, how much impact will a floating rate loan will have is what I want to seek your advice.
Well, Mr. Dhonde, I can't really, and nobody can predict interest rate movements over 5-6 years. I mean, it's difficult to predict it over 5-6 months, let alone 5-6 years. So I think clearly, I think that this floating versus fixed is not a one-time debate. It's not a one-time decision. Okay, so it is a decision that you constantly need to review. If today, personally, I believe today floating rate loans make sense, because yes, rates may still go up a bit, but post that rates may drop off or remain constant, and the premium that you pay for a dual rate loan or a fixed rate loan is a little too stiff. But that is my personal view, and that view can change in 6 months' time. So I think the key decision for you to do is, should you take the risk on floating rate loan? It looks takeable, it can work against you. Please keep reviewing it. What I would advise you strongly is to apply for that home loan on apnapaisa.com, so that you will be able to get choices from 3, 4, 5 people in the market, and then you can take a decision.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. If there are any more questions, we are open. We just open for one more question. We have time for one more question. We have Benu who wants to ask a question. Go ahead, Benu. You have been unmuted.
Yeah, you mentioned about special rates for women. which is 0.25% less. So this is available for what amount of loan? But if loan amount is above 1 crore, will this percentage increase?
No, to the best of my knowledge, you get a 0.25% discount as a woman, and that is thanks to the fact that this is a LIC housing finance scheme, and this is thanks to the fact that I think LIC housing finance probably finds that women borrowers are more prompt in repayment of their loans. I was wondering, there was I think somebody who was there was an authorized representative from LIC Housing Finance who was to log in. If he is there, can you please raise your hand, sir, and then you could answer this question. Is there somebody here from LIC Housing Finance who can answer this question? Okay, there doesn't seem to be anybody, doesn't matter. So Benu, I think basically you would get 0.25% discount. I think it is irrespective of the amount.
Thank you.
Okay, so great. It was great being with you on this webinar. To conclude, I think home loan from LIC Housing Finance, clearly convenient. They are a specialized institution. They know properties. They offer, and they are definitely convenient. They are not cheap, and they can be your choice if you are interested in fixed rate or dual rate loans. Thank you.